Hello, everybody. Welcome to Inside Why We Love Star Wars, Episode 2 of a show that was originally conceived as a Patreon-only audio show, and it will remain that exclusive for Patreon supporters, but we are also now releasing it right here on the Ken Napzok YouTube channel, because why not? We all need a little bit of extra entertainment. Here's the purpose of the show. I did write a book. I was fortunate enough to be contacted and put in touch with the fine editors of Mango Publishing back in 2018, and I wrote a book, Why We Love Star Wars. Some of you, I think most of you, are aware of this book, but doesn't mean everyone has a copy, so you can do that, pick that up, including get the German version or the audiobook version. Get all three of them, collect them all, and more on the way, we hope. This series started not just as a way to talk about the thing I wrote. That's not what I'm here for. It actually gives you some insight, to share my writing process, to share what was going through it. I take some questions from Patreon supporters about the essays in the book, or some questions, or maybe their own memories. And also, I share things that I would do differently. I share some of the mistakes. I share some of the things I read now and go, ooh, I don't know if I put that in there. I just want to share the entire experience and the writing process. And maybe you can tell your own story out there. Maybe you can write your own books, because as Yoda says, failure is the best teacher. And I failed a lot during this book, but I also feel I succeeded during this book. I'm very proud of what I put out there. So this is why we do it. Like I said, this was originally conceived as a Patreon exclusive show. And I might return that at some point, but I think it's fun right now with what we're all gone. I'm locked in my podcast studio. I might as well talk. For those listening to audio at home, yeah, the mic system's a little different. I'm using a lav mic here today because we're on video. We might as well use some lav mics when we got it, right? So, all right. What we do, we go essay by essay, small chunks, of course. There's 100 essays in the book, plus some supplemental material. We don't want to belabor the point too much there. We don't want to keep you here for hours. Small little chunks, taking a look at the book, and it's also easier for me to do my notes. We've already looked at some of the intros, the prologue, the final note in essays 100, 99, and 98. But today, we are going to be going through essays, 97, 96, 95, 94. I do have some notes. So occasionally, if you're watching a video, I'll look down on some of my notes. Please don't hold that against me. All right. The first essay we're going to be looking at today is essay number 97, Lock S Foils into Attack Positions, the promotion of Wedge Antilles and the fun of Star Wars traditions. So this essay was one of the ones that I knew right away early on. I wanted to have it in the book, but I know it's not some big giant moment, so I wasn't going to rank it too high. Again, the rankings in this book are definitely not scientific, though they do get more important as they go on. It's not your list, it's my list, and therefore your list is more important. But for me, I wanted to show really why I love Star Wars, and what I think a lot of people love Star Wars for is these little things that can be easily overlooked. You can just love Star Wars on the surface. You can come on in, pew, 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 explosions, lightsabers, got it, get it, good. I'm entertained, I'm on the way, and you could stop there, and I actually sometimes envy those fans that can just kind of stop there. But I, like a lot of you, go very, very deep into these things. And the Wedge Antilles moment in Return of the Jedi, Wedge Antilles becoming Red Leader and getting to say those words, lock S foils into attack position, it was something that when I first saw it as a young kid, 7 years old, it's like cool. And I write about that. Like, whoa, what is that? What are S foils? What's going on? And I also talk about the moments in New Hope, Dave Dre saying it. No idea what that is. What are S-foils? What's an X-Wing? I don't even know. I'm just watching this crazy space adventure. But to come back to it a little bit later, and I'm not talking too much later, by 10, 11, and 12, I'm watching Star Wars for those little details. I'm watching Star Wars to have those conversations on the playground. And Wedge Antilles saying those words I was so proud of Wedge. And it is a tradition, and Star Wars fans, we love our little traditions in movies. I've got a bad feeling about this. Even the Wilhelm scream, we want those things, and when they're not there, or we think they're not there. BB-8 saying it in Last Jedi got people upset, and I always kind of like that choice, but I understand you didn't hear it, so you felt it wasn't there. Now you're upset about it. That's fair. It's fair because we love those traditions. So I definitely wanted to put that in there because Wedge saying it is one of those Star Wars traditions. And I talk about, Red Leader as a position. It was Obi-Wan Kenobi's position, Battle of Coruscant. Garvin Dave Drace, as we mentioned, Wedge Antilles, anyone going forward, whenever it pops up again, or it pops up even in the past in a story that's set before even the Revenge of the Sith moments, you're going to connect it to this little history. It's like a special club. It's like the Saturday Night Live Five Timers Club, and Wedge Antilles is definitely in that. And if there were a late night comedy show in Star Wars, I hope Wedge would host it at one point. What I definitely also wanted to put in there, and this is an example of how I watch Star Wars, not just how I love Star Wars. With the new stuff coming on, the new Disney era canon, the modern canon, it has done a lot to go back to things we love and add to it. And I always you keep hearing me on like Force Center talk about putting down tracing paper. You put it down, you put it down, you put it down. You can kind of connect everything. If maybe you want to approach it from like a detective, putting pictures and strings on a board. One of my favorite things, and it's not something I wanted, not something I felt I needed, but something I got, and I really came around to liking it, is the revelation that the Y-wing pilot that flies away at the end of New Hope, one of the only surviving members of the attack with 30 snub fighters, and that's one of the only ones that was left, Luke Skywalker, Wedge, and that Y-wing, it was revealed to be Evan Verlaine, a Alderaanian pilot, friend at times, sort of. Right after this, there'd be some contentious moments with Leia, but grew to be a great friend and confidant of Leia. And that was introduced in the 2015 Princess Leia comic book series, 5-issue series. That series itself had some up and downs. I think it's worth a reread. We'll do that again. Reread, yeah. But it's one of those bits of information that I've always wondered. And again, legend stuff might have that answer, but to have it down officially in canon, not something I was walking around going, I want it, but I got it. And it just adds to why I love Star Wars. So I do talk about it as if it's real history. And I watch Star Wars a lot as if it's real history unfolding in front of me, or I guess behind me. So to connect the moments with Wedge Antilles, surviving the Death Star run, pulling out because of the damage to his ship, Luke gets the kill shot, and there's that Y-wing flying away. So now it's connected to Evan Verlaine, and to put it just all together. Again, this big picture, like it's living history. I wanted to address that in there, and that's what I put. Again, even just the Lockheed foils being part of what keeps us fans in, the deep diving fans, is really the purpose behind this there. We do got some questions about this one, or at least a statement. This comes from Chris Jones on Patreon. Thank you, Chris, for your support. He says, he says, overall, not so much a question, but I liked how 97, 96, and 94, especially, say something with a rich depth at time and changes have brought to Star Wars. And how nostalgia can satisfy, but new plot insights can add real depth of flavor to an already delicious offering. There are moments far more like touch points to many moments in canonical time. This is exactly what I'm saying about, I think, the Evan Verlaine thing, and also just, but also, as Wedge goes on, even just in the original trilogy, him saying Lockheed foils in attack position and Return of the Jedi almost makes the Garvin Dave Drace moment even that much more important, even that much more exciting, and that much more of a tradition we love. He says this specifically about essay number 97, Wedge's story. Still more to come in episode 9, question mark. Again, I wrote this book before Rise of Skywalker. A lot of these posts in this section were before Rise of Skywalker, and we do have a final little Wedge moment. Great, sweet little moment. Dennis Lawson finally coming back, and I think that was really cool. But he writes, Wedge's story, still more to come up tonight, and the Marvel Comics insight that not just him and Luke, but also Evan Verlaine survived. French poet influence, possibly there. Yeah, again, talking to that just expansion of the canon we love. So that's that. No general stakes in this one. Excuse me, cough button. Nothing I'd really do again. I did take the approach of there's not much more to say about the Wedge thing other than it's just cool. That's sometimes a repeating theme, because also I think that's kind of Star Wars. Things are often just cool in Star Wars, and it's okay to be cool. We can be mocked for thinking things are cool. It's all right. We want Star Wars. I'm looking up right now at some of the items I have. Infus Ness speeder comes to mind. Her design, the character of Infus Ness, it's just cool. It's just Star Wars cool. And I think that's the thing. This is the first time I really addressed it in the book there. So we'll move on here as I switch the notes around, all in front of you, crinkling it up like some ASMR. All right, next one up is number 96. Chewie, we're home. When Han Solo welcomed us back, of course, from episode 7, but more specifically from the trailer. And that is what I wrote about specifically. I went focused on that. I think the scene itself, the use of it in the trailer, Joseph Scrimshaw, Jennifer Land, and I really, on Force Center, took some deep dives into that. It was Joseph who kind of first acknowledged in our group, like JJ's putting him in the pose, the promotional pose from 77, the Chewie and Han side by side, guns almost in the same spot. It just kind of looks the same. And it was clear that this movie was going to be speaking to those fans from the old times. There was this unspoken rule about the prequels kind of being, let's just put it in the background. Even as the prequels and the appreciation for the prequels started to grow, Celebration 2015, Anaheim, there wasn't a ton of prequel stuff around versus now, where you go to conventions, Star Wars conventions, and there's just a whole bunch of stuff with the prequels there. So because a lot of the inside of that scene and its use in the prequels have already been discussed, I wanted to approach this essay from a very, very personal point of view. And that was for me, watching the trailer for the first time on my phone in Primm, Nevada, which was, I was coming back from a wrestling convention. Me and my friend Paul, we were stopping there right on the border, where the Whiskey Pete's Casino, the Buffalo Bills Casino with the roller coaster right there at the state line. There's that big gas station there. And we pulled off, we've been leaving Vegas, and we had to leave early. And we had to leave early because I had to get back down. I was going to Star Wars Celebration the next day. I was coming home, packing up, leaving, getting to my hotel room as soon as I could. And a lot of my friends, Mark Ellis, Christian Harloff, Scott Mance, all those people were there at the convention watching the trailer. And I couldn't be there. I had this other commitment. I didn't want to be jealous, but I had a little tinge of jealousy. But I experienced that trailer a lot different than them. I experienced it watching it, in this gas station or in the car as my friend filled up, trying to download it and there's almost no service out there, and just holding my phone. 2015 is not so long ago, but the tech even then seemed a little different, right? No, we weren't being fried by 5G then yet. So that was going on. So I wanted to capture that. I really wanted to come from a personal point of view. And one of the things that I wish I put in, this is if I could go back in and do the updated version, we talk about nostalgia. This entry is a lot about nostalgia. Chewie, we're home. It's Han saying, hey, if you had some issues with the prequels, or you've haven't been away from Star Wars for a while, or you're worried about what's going to happen, this movie's going to try to recapture that. And I think they did a good job. A lot of you probably watch and think they did a good job. Some of you might not, but that was what the trailer was trying to tell. And this was the second trailer too, by the way, which I do write about. We had, we'd seen the teaser trailer during the November 2014 Thanksgiving weekend time period, but we didn't hear anything. We saw the Falcon, which is almost its own character. So now to finally hear a legacy character, an original trilogy character speaking in modern times, and it's Han Solo, it's Harrison Ford, it was pretty big. But it was funny for me, and I wish this is what I wish I wrote about and connected a little bit more. The nostalgia is baked into the moment, but it was like watching that Phantom Menace trailer for the first time. I remember seeing it in theaters, maybe bought a ticket to meet Joe Black, whatever it was. But the idea that if you wanted to watch it at home, you fire up AOL, you screech through the connection process, and you have to download it, and it's slow, and you're waiting, and you're watching it grow. The download speeds are horrible. And that was me in Primm. Trying to watch it. So here I am, the nostalgia, I'm about to be just washed over with nostalgia, but it felt like 1999 again, too. Not even 77, 83 or any other time. It felt like 99. I wish I kind of connected the moment a little bit more to that. There is a mistake in this essay, and this is why I'm addressing them. These mistakes drive me crazy, and it's not even my fault. It's not even the editor's fault or the copy writing folks, the copy editor's fault. It's just things happen. This book there was a quick writing process to get things through, and I did a lot of proofreading, and other people did too. But just your brain kind of leaps over things, right? Your brain just kind of can't connect when you're scanning through. And almost in back-to-back sentences, I used the right spelling for Primm, Nevada, Primm, Nevada, and then the almost next line down, I use one M. Just a mistake, slipped. But every time I would read it on my laptop, looking at what I wrote, my brain would just jump past that. And then 2 passes of a professional copy editor doing it too. Missed it too, and got through. And this is not one of the mistakes that makes me stay up at night. There are other mistakes in the book. We talked about the first one's misnaming the Star Destroyer completely by accident and just totally overlooking it, and no one there at Mango would catch it because they're not a Star Wars fan like I am. I understand that. That one kept me up at night because it's the first essay. But this one, yeah, but it's just it's back to back. So it's like, well, which one's right? And then, the fact that both were in there drives me a little crazy. One of the final things in this essay that I still love to talk about when I talk about this trailer in the moment, Chewie, we're home. Great moment. We're all just baked in the nostalgia. We're all excited for what's coming, but we missed a major plot point. We missed, and there was that kind of question of, all right, he's coming. It looks like he's coming back on the Falcon. Han saying we're home. I don't know if we spent enough time asking, well, where had he been? Which is understandable. We're just excited for Star Wars to come back. But the idea that Han and Chewie weren't on the Falcon. They didn't have the Falcon. The Falcon had been taken away from them. I think it was maybe easy to assume that maybe they had the Falcon and it was stolen from them within the movie and they were returning a little bit later on. But this was, as we later found out, Han's introduction. And one of my favorite things about the Force Awakens and the sequel trilogy is what it did with our legacy characters. And when we meet them, things have changed. Things aren't great. They aren't the same conquering heroes. 30 plus years has passed, and I just low-key really love the choice to have Han run away. That's Han. That's Han's character. To have him run away, to have Chewie kind of go with him out of loyalty again, perhaps knowing better, perhaps having more arguments and conversations. I think when you connect it to Solo, when Enfys Nest offers him to stay and Han doesn't want to, I think back in New Hope when Han's collecting his reward and he's getting ready to leave again, and Chewie's kind of mumbling to him, and Han actually reacts, I know what I'm doing, that kind of thing. I think Chewie along the way is always going, hey, remember when you ran away? Remember last time? Do you want to keep doing this? And I think in my headcanon, this entire time that they've been on the Irvana, the smuggler ship that Han has, that Chewie's kind of like, look, man, so eventually we got to go back. You can't keep doing this. And the fact that sequence kind of starts here, it's one of the things that the trailer was kind of telling us, but we kind of, through our excitement, understandably, kind of went past it there. So that's number 96, Chewie, we're home. Going back to Patreon, Chris Jones writes again, the nostalgic high of the story of Han and Chewie and the Falcon reunited after all those years, like a personal, long-last family reunion, which The Force Awakens did feel like there. So Chris felt that connection too. Double check in that he doesn't have anything more to say on that one there, but I appreciate you participating in that one, Chris. Next one up is number 95, Ewok Hunt. And yeah, you do have to say that carefully. A Star Wars horror story. So, oops, get myself back up there. Ewok Hunt, the Star Wars horror story from Battlefront 2. So the first thing I'll confess during the writing process and making the full 100 list, the list was pretty easy to come about. And there were some near misses, things that didn't make it, some honorable mentions, those kind of things. And if I was to get to write an extended edition or come back and do a little bit more, which, something I wouldn't be opposed to doing. There's some things I put in, but I never wanted to force anything. I never wanted to say, I need this in. I had some things I wanted to get to, but I would never force it. And one of the examples I always give that is there was a moment just reserved. I put it on the list. My editor had the list, and I just reserved it and said something from Star Wars Resistance, because Star Wars Resistance hadn't come out yet. Now, Star Wars Resistance only went 2 seasons. It's wrapped up, and it's got some great stuff. I love a lot about it, but I also didn't connect to it with Star Wars Resistance as much as other shows. Definitely as Rebels and Clone Wars, and it was, that the show was definitely built a little different. Definitely had a different vibe and feel to it, and it did have some deep moments. And there's moments I think now I would probably say I might write about 1 or 2 of them. I almost wrote about Jarek Yeager and the fact that it was revealed that he was a rebel war veteran and kind of had lost family, and there was something darker going on. And that moment I did connect with. There's some great moments later on with Kylo Ren and the refugees and their perspective of this evil creature with the red blade coming after them. There's a lot about that I would have written too, but at the end of the day, I didn't connect with it on a deeper level. So I moved it out. I say all that to say, this entry, number 95, Ewok Hunt, I wanted, I knew I wanted to put some stuff in from Battlefront 2, and I knew there was going to be some stuff about Iden Versio later on, SA 61. I just really love Battlefront 2. And at the time, even back here, 2018, the game had a lot of negativity surrounding it. I think a lot of people aren't paying attention to the game, but the game still goes on, and each update is adds more to the game. So I didn't know what. And again, I didn't want to force it. But then during the writing process, the early stages of it, they released the Ewok hunt mode, which was going to be temporary. Now it's permanent on Battlefront 2, where you are stormtroopers being hunted by Ewoks, and then if you die, you reverse, you get to play an Ewok. And literally, the first session I played, I was scared. I was a little scared. Like, it was the middle of daylight. I wasn't tremendously scared, but I was scared enough. I was like, this is haunting. This is great. This is a Star Wars horror story. And that's what I wanted to write about more than anything initially. Was we talk about a lot about, could there be Star Wars genre movies? We always hear Star Wars Solo's a Western, and yeah, all that stuff's there. Mandalorian's kind of a Western. It's kind of a samurai film as well. It's all those kind of things. But could there ever just be straight out Star Wars horror story? I know there was a Death Troopers, the Legend novel was kind of straight horror. There's definitely some stuff in Clone Wars, some episodes. I would consider horror and horror-based and horror-inspired, but could we do it? And I just really believed in my heart that the Ewok Hunt mode was a Star Wars horror story. And that's why I chose to almost describe it in detail. And some of the essays, my editors they write back, they'd like, oh, this is more of your slice of life. This is more your going beat by beat. They were kind of almost amused at the different ways I'd approach some of the essays. And rarely did they want me to change my point of view. Sometimes I approached the essays with insight or trying to be insightful. Other times it was treating, like I said, like the Wedge thing, just having some moments of, this is real. I'm talking about something that really happened. Well, this video game moment, I want to just describe it because that was, I felt, the best way to get out what I was feeling about this. You're a stormtrooper. You're on Endor. You have nothing but a flashlight on your blaster, and you got to hope your blaster works. And when the light goes out, you're in the dark, and all you hear is Ewoks. And how to take that moment, then the essay kind of grew to showing kind of my personal journey with the Ewoks as a kid, as a child of the 80s, Return of the Jedi, first one I saw in the theaters. And I loved the Ewoks. And then as I got older, I realized, oh, I'm not supposed to like the Ewoks. And I let myself kind of be bullied into that position. And look, there's some silly things about the Ewoks. I get it. I get it. And if you were a little bit older in 1983 than I was 7, you already had some problems. The Ewoks have been controversial from the start. I think the Ewoks cartoon, the Caravan, then the movies, the Caravan of Courage and the Battle of Endor, added to both their legend and both the problems that people have with them. Understandable. The Ewoks are there. What are you going to do? They're part of the story. But I think there's some seriousness to them. And people always go to, well, they eat people. They eat people. You got to take them seriously. They'll eat you. They'll eat you. Yeah. Working with Jennifer Landa on Force Center, my love for the Ewoks has just grown and grown and grown because her passion for the Ewoks is just always been there. She just loves the Ewoks. And when you really get into the story, and I love watching Star Wars like that, as if it's real. I'm not watching the Ewoks and criticize slippers or their zippers or their eyes blink or not, but treating them as real as the rebels had to, and to see that they have a leader, Chief Chirpa, who inherited the power. He's in Bright Tree Village. Logray, the medicine man's whispering in his ears. You have a young warrior, Wicket. You have the crazy warrior, Paplu. Tebow, all the Ewoks are there to really get into it, to really see where they fit into the story. I love doing that there, and that shows the love of the Ewoks. When you really start going in there, that's where I show my love of the Ewoks. It's just knowing their story, getting involved with it. And I felt this essay, I wanted to show just as best I could what I feel about the Ewoks now, that they are a real formidable opponent, and there's a reason they took down the Empire. But you can watch the movie and be like, do those little sticks and stones actually kill the stormtroopers? I don't know. But in story, they do, and that's what I love. So this essay was about my journey there. I also got to, one of my favorite moments was putting in That Guy's Wise, which is one of my favorite little throwaway Ewok lines and Star Wars lines. And then also there's a moment I towards the end, I wanted to make reference to, it's Wicket when he's talking to Leia, mentions the Akiata. Ewok for Imperials or Stormtroopers or the enemy, whatever it is. I love that moment too. The Akiata. I was desperate. I could not find the exact translation, the exact spelling of it, not in Arabesh, but in our own basic. And I searched high and low for it. I couldn't find it. I went with something I found, and I spelled it Akie space ATA, Akiata. I don't know if that's correct. My editors didn't know if that's correct. And after a while, I just felt I didn't care. I felt the spirit of it was there. So maybe I think I even reached out to Alex Damon. I really think at one point I reached out to Alex Damon and said, "Do you have anything on this?" I can't remember. I can't remember how deep I searched, but after a while, the facts, the canon of the spelling of Akiata didn't matter to me. It was the spirit of the moment because that's just one of my favorite moments there. And it's fun to say Akiata. One update I would include if I was to get a chance to write this again, this straight book again, or write expanded edition, I might include a separate issue or essay, or maybe just built into this one, the latest update on Battlefront 2, which is that you actually get to play an Ewok in the co-op mode. You get to go around and fling those arrows and really kill some stormtroopers, use Wisties. I'm all for it, and it even adds to my love of Ewoks and their place in the galaxy, their place in the story. So I think I would add that in if I was doing now. Generally no big mistakes here. Just that the Akiata moment was just one of those, like, you gotta leap. You got to leap and hope your audience goes along for that little ride. All right, the next one, final one we're dealing with here today is Vader's Castle. Oh, wait, you know what? Before we go to Vader's Castle, my bad. Let's go back to Tim Van Newland on Patreon. He wrote this, says, how many times did you play Ewok Hunt before you said, and now I really have to start on this essay? I love on the first page of the essay, where you describe how the mode works and feels from the perspective of a Stormtrooper. Imagine you playing the game mode a few times as a Stormtrooper and taking notes while playing the game. Or did you do it in another way? I didn't take notes in playing the game. Like I said up top, I just knew right away, this is a great Star Wars moment. I was so pulled into the story. Imagining you're a Stormtrooper on Endor. The battle is over. You've lost. There's chaos. You just saw Death Star explode. You need to get out of here. There's still some semblance of the Empire around. We even know from the Battlefront 2 story mode, Versio's on Endor. They're trying to get out of it. Inferno Squad is. So to be just a regular old grunt on the ground, a Stormtrooper, not really knowing, you're scared, you're trying to get out. Who knows what you believed in, Were you just a Stormtrooper doing your job? I don't know. It's a bigger conversation that modern Star Wars stories try to deal with. Not saying all the Stormtroopers were guilt-free, if you know what I mean, but to just put myself in that moment, and it was hearing the of the Valiant horn for the Ewoks here in the background, and that was a sound I had heard all my life as a Star Wars fan. It's a great moment. But to hear it now, it brought chills of terror to me. I was like, this is a great Star Wars moment. This is why I love Star Wars. Boom, goes in the book. All right, final one that we're going to discuss today is number 94, Vader's Castle, the Lair of the Dark Lord revealed. This is from Rogue One, a Star Wars story, of course. And Chris Jones writes again on number 94, says, Vader's Castle, like a rich reward after years of desperately flicking through the concept artwork influences, broadening the canvas of our Star Wars cinematic world. And Macquarie, the Droid World read-along audio cassette storybook had a similar impact on me, scared me too. So, yeah, Chris is tied into kind of what I was thinking there. I just taking myself back again, this book, Why We Love Star Wars, is not just about the big scenes. It's not about Darth Vader. Darth Vader is a reason to love Star Wars. But it is about that moment in the theater, the first time I saw Rogue One. It was a screening room, to be blunt, which sometimes a little joy. There's a little less joy in those press screening rooms when you're watching it with other people who are just there to do a job, don't really love Star Wars as much as I do. I'm sitting there, eyes wide open, just trying to take it all in. Every planet is, of course, named in Rogue One until it goes to Mustafar. They just love keeping that mystery of Mustafar. Even in Rise of Skywalker, we now see, right? So to see it pop up and to be like, oh God, are we on Mustafar? And then I literally just didn't want to say it out loud, but as I'm watching the first time, just to be like, oh my gosh, Vader's castle, Macquarie's castle. And exactly what Chris is saying. This is something I didn't say I'd be, I wasn't totally waiting for this, but it goes back to my youth, and I wrote a lot about the old days, the old days, you see, of getting Star Wars news before the internet when it was just handed down. Um, we had heard about Vader's castle. You'd seen it. People had seen it. You knew someone who saw it. You knew someone who had an uncle who knew something. And a lot of times it was false information. I give the real example that I used to trick some friends into, if they didn't want to be Lando when we'd go to recess and we'd divvy out parts today, and someone didn't want to be Lando because he didn't have force powers, and well, Luke has force powers. I would lie to them, be like, "Oh, Lando's Luke's half cousin, and he has some like half force, but he can call lightsabers to him." And they'd be like, "Oh, really?" And I'd be like, "Yeah," because he had nothing to prove you wrong. It's the playground. Playground rules, man. Savage out there. So they believe it. And that's where Vader's Castle, the legend of Vader's Castle, was kind of born. So to finally see it in 2016 on screen, knowing as you got older, some of those urban legends were true. There was a castle design. There was some mentions of it in an early script, maybe the Lee Brackett script. Like now that you know more, to actually finally see it, it was to me one of the great things that Disney era Star Wars does. The new does pay respect to the past. It is built off the past, and it rewards you for those things. And otherwise, if you don't know it, you don't need to know. It's a castle. Darth Vader's in there. He and Krennic are about to have a business meeting. Sometimes that's all you need to know. But for us older fans or fans who are a little more clued in, it is there's definitely a reward and definitely a new Star Wars built on the past there. One of the things, two notes in here. While I was writing this, the Charles Soule comic line of the Darth Vader, the second one, which dealt a lot with Vader's castle, was going on. So I do address it in here. I had to take one of those little leaps too. Addressed that the comic was dealing with it because it wasn't done yet. So I didn't know all the answers. And I was slightly worried reading the rest of the comic. Is it going to undo anything in here that I wrote? And I don't think it does. I don't think any of the Star Wars material that has come out since I finished this book, and there's been a lot: Mandalorian, Rise of Skywalker, new Clone Wars comics, books, and there's going to be more. That's just why we had to decide to write it when we did. But I don't know, I was worried, and it didn't really take it away. It just kind of made it all bigger and more vibrant of why Vader was there. There was some confusion because some of the early information that came about Vader's castle had the idea that Palpatine forced him to go there, and that's true from a certain point of view. Charles Soule kind of explains a little bit more. It might have been, I don't know, I'm paraphrasing, but it might have been a little bit of a mutual decision, and Vader wanted to go relive that pain, and he took Padme's ship and he burned it and destroyed it, and the efforts and the people he killed, and the imperial design team that he killed in the design of the castle, how he couldn't get it right, and it's a great story. And also touches on kind of the history of Mustafar. There's a lot of things there. I don't want to spoil it. So I was glad. I was glad when it was in the end. I didn't feel it discounted in this, but I just remember as I wrote this, that started coming out, and I was like, "Ooh, I'm writing this based on information we have." But if you connect to the themes, I don't think that changes. Some of the details might change, but if you connect to the themes, you're okay. And also, that was one thing. So the title of this essay is, of course, Vader's Castle: The Lair of the Dark Lord Revealed. Now, what we know is it's kind of more referred to as Fortress Vader. More in story, and that makes sense. I don't think you're gonna call it, if you're an Imperial officer going, Lord Vader's over on Vader's Castle. Fortress Vader makes more sense. It's more epic. It's more gothic and medieval, right? It just kind of is in line. I don't address it, and I think that had started to come out during the writing process, but I also think I made the decision to not over-explain it or to not change it to Vader's Castle. I think if I remember more correctly, I could have gone back. I think I had time to go change, or maybe even add some stuff in here, but change the title of this to Fortress Vader. But sometimes those things we just kind of come to a Baby Yoda. That's what I'm talking about. That's the agreement. We come to an agreement that even though we know it's not necessarily Baby Yoda, we know it's the child, it's the asset, if you want to be cold about it. Even though it's not that, we just kind of all decide publicly that's what we're going to call it. Vader's Castle, I think, still as a name, it's known as more than Fortress Vader. So that's why I didn't do that. So that is my look at those essays right there. Why We Love Star Wars. You can pick this up if you want to join along. We'll be doing this again to go inside, and I want some questions. I want you guys to know. I want to know what you guys want to know about the writing process, my thoughts, what you would have done. I'll address even some of the bigger mistakes. There's some mistakes coming. Typos are one thing. Typos are always going to happen. When I did the audiobook, I stumbled onto some, just straight out typos, weird grammar choices, which I always, by the way, I make weird grammar choices on purpose a lot. I write speeches more than I do essays or books or anything like that. So that's why I'm really proud of the audiobook version. But like in the booth, we came upon some things I was just embarrassed. And the audio engineer came back and was just like, hey man, you would be surprised at the books. And I'm talking big books. You'd be surprised at what slips through and actually gets published. Don't feel bad. You get to correct it here. Don't worry about it. So that's just my nature. My nature is to hold on to these mistakes and to address them publicly so that you don't mock me or throw scorn my way publicly. So the next session, we'll be taking a look at essay 93, which is The Scoundrel's Shrug from Return of the Jedi, Roar the Porg, and Sabine and the Darksaber, and we'll get up to number 90, Cassian Andor, Separatist Blood. Some of my favorite entries, and it was coming up. We moved some of the things on the list. For the most part, the list 100 to 1 stayed the same throughout the process, but there were some things along the way, and there is, I think I might move the Cassian moment up if I was to shuffle the decks there, but we'll explain that more next time. Thank you for checking on in here. You can follow me at Napzok. Go ahead and follow me on Twitch if you want to, twitch.tv/Napzok. We're doing a lot of Lego builds over there and playing games and playing Battlefront 2 as well. You can watch me just fling those arrows at a stormtrooper. It's just so damn fun. And if you want to support, patreon.com/Napzok. And again, if you want to pick up the book, you can do that wherever fine books are sold. Amazon, IndieBound, Target.com, anywhere. Check it out. If it's not there, request it. Also, I am selling personalized copies. If you want a copy, you can go through my website, kennapzok.com, and I'll send you out a personalized copy and some bonus, like little stickers and things. Who doesn't love stickers and little postcards? That'll be there as well. So that is it. I appreciate you, friends. Stick around for more Star Wars-related content here on Ken Napzok's YouTube channel. That's me for this, and also for even deeper Star Wars conversations with me, Joseph Scrimshaw, and Jennifer Landa. Go over to the Force Center podcast if you want. That is it for now. We'll see you soon. Bye.